Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and here we check out Overly Sarcastic Productions' Miscellaneous Myths for Typhon and Medea. Now, Typhon because I just want to check this out, and Medea because I just want to check this out, also because I may or may not have been told by my DM for a level 30 D&D campaign happening later this week, that and I'm going to quote here, need to do this now, do it now, and also do it before the game. Yeah, he lets us homebrew to keep up with his shit. And I'm going to be looking at the video we're about to see, terrified of everything here. Yeah. More importantly, you guys know the deal. Link below, video. Hit it up. Let's get started.
Ah, Zeus. You were so promising back in the day. Freeing your siblings, overthrowing your tyrannical father Kronos, casting the Titans into Tartarus, becoming Lord of the Heavens, and ruling the ancient world with wisdom you got from absorbing...
Wait. Oh, is this the closest thing we get to a Zeus video? Because I've heard the exact term Red has put is no, F no, hell no, not even going close to it no, because to do a good job on Zeus, she'd have to touch on things that are not going to be covered by her.
Your first wife. That's such a strong start for the heroic king of the gods. And sure, you married your sister, but like, that was traditional for gods. It could have been way worse. And then you...
I mean, it was kind of traditional for humans at the time too, and after that time, and before that, it's been a problem for a while. Unfortunately, Zeus was feeling... Yeah, that's basically Zeus.
You spent centuries screwing with humanity, punishing Prometheus for trying to help them out, commissioning Pandora specifically to screw them over, and systematically having sex with as much of the female population as you could manage by any means necessary. I mean, you're the king of the gods, Lord of Thunder. You have a killer aesthetic. I want you to be cool. You have so much going for you.
I mean, technically, if you want to look at this aesthetic that doesn't become a dick, Jove? That's the closest thing I can think to that.
But there's only so much I can respect a god who routinely turns himself into livestock specifically for the purpose of boning unsuspecting humans. Yeah. Some days I just really want to see you get your ass kicked.
Please tell me this is the video where he gets his ass kicked. Also, she basically just described the internet, so... Yeah. Whoa, this is different. Welcome to the Olympian age. Young Zeus. Oh, it's all of them are young. I get that. Yeah, because he doesn't have the beard yet. Okay. Yeah, and there's just random Hades off to the side looking all sad. Because he doesn't have Persephone yet. Yeah.
So in the early days of ancient Greece, Zeus and the fam had just overthrown Kronos and cast the Titans into Tartarus. And by all accounts, Gaia was...
I know I encouraged them, but I can't play favorites with my kids. Really?
Wasn't too happy about her last batch of children getting slam dunked into the underworld sewage outflow pipe. Now, because the modern image of Mother Nature is generally positive and nurturing, it can be...
The fuck you talking about? Maybe it's just my cultural zeitgeist that's different than yours, but my image of Mother Nature is, you enjoy the weather? 100-degree heat wave, tsunamis, tornadoes, earthquakes. I'm here to fuck you up. Maybe that's just me.
Easy to forget that personality
also could be summed up as, hey, welcome to Florida.
Gaia covered all of nature. You know, storms, volcanoes, earthquakes, landslides. There's plenty of nice, happy tree stuff happening on the side, but in Greek mythology, Gaia mostly makes monsters, and this story is no exception. With Tartarus itself as the father, Gaia gives birth to the monstrous Typhon, a kaiju-sized eldritch abomination with loads of heads, flaming eyes, and just a whole bunch of snakes. Now, Typhon is unironically the biggest threat in Greek mythology. While primordial titans like Gaia and Uranos were physically...
Are they all just raising up the middle finger? Yeah, the Titans are doing it. How big are we talking? I want to see that image, though.
Ironically, the biggest threat in Greek mythology, while primordial titans...
Uranos, Gaia, Aether, and Hera. I don't even remember these two. They probably were mentioned, though.
Like Gaia and Uranos were physically bigger, they also had a lot less agency and didn't tend to directly oppose the gods. And while there were monsters aplenty, most of them were small enough that they could be taken down by one hero at a time, with maybe the bare minimum of divine assistance or the occasional flying horse. Typhon is in a weight class of his own. Physically huge and incredibly powerful, Typhon is more like a force of nature than a monster. He also plays into the Greek mythological succession cycle, where each ruler of the cosmos is successively overthrown by a new generation of gods. With Kronos defeating Uranos and Zeus defeating Kronos, Typhon is next in the lineup to take down Zeus and become...
Yeah, just like one god, second god, third god, and nope. Really, though, because the weird part is, even though he's supposed to be in the cycle, from what she said on the Dionysus video, it almost sounds like Dionysus was the one being set up for the next cycle. I wonder if there's variations where they actually coexisted as different options. Or more likely, they weren't different options, but they kind of absorbed each other's traits of taking over. One went one way, one went the other. One is more of an ascension, the other is more of a small god puny. That's probably why she made him green.
The new ruler of the world. But before he starts off on any of the god fighting, the first thing he does is he goes and shacks up with a monstrous half-beautiful nymph, half-giant snake called Echidna. It's not her fault, guys. It was her name first. Anyway.
That's actually where it came from? So, a monster that's supposed to take over after Zeus. Let's be honest, if he was doing anything weirder, it would be... You know, Red usually calls out when the god is doing something stupid, and just shacking up with Echidna right here is more along the lines of, oh, they're both into it. Does that make Typhon less morally dubious than Zeus? Is he the good guy? Probably not, but it's a bar that's pretty low at this point.
Anyway, Typhon and Echidna have a bunch of monster babies, including the Chimera, the Hydra, the Sphinx, the Nemean Lion, and Kerberos. With that out of the way, and plenty of antagonists established for future generations of heroes to fight, Typhon marches towards Olympus to smack down some gods.
Yep.
Now, in a couple versions of the story, the Olympians are so spooked by this fire-breathing Godzilla-sized snake monster that they shapeshift into animals and run away all the way to Egypt, which is a...
Oh, yeah, she's mentioned that one, which is weird because that was the first time I heard it. Otherwise, I'd be going like, the fuck right now? Isn't Typhon a god in D&D? I see where my DM was going, and I am terrified.
A little random until you notice that Artemis turns into a cat, Hermes turns into an ibis, Zeus turns into a ram, and yeah, basically, this is a little bit of early syncretism. It's specifically the ancient Greek explanation for why the Egyptians worshipped animal gods. As far as they were concerned, Bast was cat Artemis, Thoth was ibis Hermes, Amun was ram.
Oh wait, that? Really? That's an ibis?
As far as they were concerned, Bast was cat Artemis, Thoth...
Okay, can we just appreciate for a second? Red, you have found the most adorable cat picture ever, even though it looks like it's about to pounce, so it is literally plotting murder in this picture. But it's adorable little murder machine. And technically the apex predator has resulted in more species extinction than even humanity can get close to.
Thoth was ibis Hermes, Amun was ram Zeus, etc. Pretty neat. But
yeah.
Zeus waits just long enough for the Egyptian artists to get his good side before turning back and hucking some lightning bolts at Typhon, driving the monster back before getting in close with an adamantine sickle. But when Zeus goes in for the kill, Typhon surprise grapples him and turns the tables by ripping out his tendons like he's a misbehaving chicken leg.
Have fun using your imagination for this one. Yeah, Red, I would like to thank you for not drawing this one. I've seen some of the art where you decide to show it, and you're actually good enough to do it. Thank you for not.
So with Zeus's strength now roughly on par with a
all
spaghetti
of the
plate,
tendons.
Typhon tosses him into a cave along with all of his loose tendons, and sets the half-beautiful nymph, half-enormous f*** dragon Delphine.
Lol, sucks to be you. Wait, Delphine was half and half? Oh. This is probably the first time there's a beautiful woman near him, and Zeus is, I think the term limp, because he has no ligaments. It's a pun, and I'm sticking to it.
To guard it. Surprisingly, she's apparently got no relation to Echidna, the other half-lady, half-snake thing in the story. Anyway, then Typhon wanders off to presumably do giant monster things like knocking over buildings and breathing fire. But luckily, unlike every other overthrown king of the cosmos, Zeus...
all around me, oh, by the god, yeah, are familiar faces. All around me are... That's a musical symbol, isn't it?
Doesn't need to languish for long, as Hermes and Pan sneak into the cave, retrieve his tendons, and restring him like the world's horniest ukulele. Now,
that's actually a considerable boast, considering, have you ever seen someone using a ukulele? If you haven't, that doesn't make sense. If you have, you know.
Back at full power and presumably very annoyed, Zeus charges off after Typhon and a truly epic battle commences. Earthquakes, volcanoes, fire everywhere, thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening me, you know, the works. Eventually, Zeus's thunderous assault wears Typhon down, and when he tries to run, Zeus responds with his characteristic sportsmanship and drops a mountain on his head. This produces the famous Mount Etna, one of the world's most active stratovolcanoes, and supposedly also the home to Hephaestus's forges, which seems like a bit of a workplace hazard.
So the forge is literally on top of the guy Zeus beat who kicked all their asses. Huh.
I'm not gonna lie. Takes a lot of work to beat out the inherent dangers of working in an active volcano, but an imprisoned mega kaiju in the next room over manages it pretty handily. Anyway, Typhon's imprisonment is used to explain why Mount Etna is always getting the rumblies, and he's also credited with being responsible for the world's ill winds that cause bad weather or bring storms. And fun fact, despite what one might assume, this is not actually the origin of the word typhoon. Since while the etymologies are similar, typhoons don't happen in Europe, only in Asia. The word itself...
Oh yeah, that would be a thing. So this is one of those cases where the etymology of the word just happens to have convergent creations. Huh. That's actually really fascinating.
Itself seems to have originated with the Chinese word for big wind, then been reinforced by the Arabic word for cyclonic storm, and finally lightly spiced with the Greek word typhon when it made the jump into English. I think the lesson here is that the real monster was the English language all along.
As an English major, that's perfectly accurate. We steal shit from everyone. We mug other languages for their vowels, their synonyms, their random letters, and in the case of Utah, their entire cultural cuisine that people think is actually Mexican. And next up, we have Medea, who I only know through Fate. So, if she's not a doll-collecting girl who's incredibly cute, but also completely down with murder, then I have no idea what her character is.
Real quick, we've just released another set of enamel pins. We finally got Zeus and Hera ready to go, brought together by their mutual dislike of Jason, and I'm honestly really happy with how these ones turned out. So check out the link to our Crownmade shop and snag a set before they're gone. I don't think it's exactly controversial to suggest that Greek mythology is a bit lacking in the nuanced female characters department.
I mean, technically it did get there with Aphrodite, there we go, but only when you look at the past versions of her, how she was actually way more badass.
It's a bit lacking in the nuanced female characters department. The goddesses have their fair share of personality, and you do get the occasional anomalous powerhouse like Atalanta and Kirke. But for the most part, the ladies of Greek mythology are fairly one note. Queens who mother heroes, princesses who fall in love with heroes, random targets of divine retribution, Zeus's girlfriend of the week. Not a whole lot of...
And unlike all the others, I think he mostly kept it to girls. Unlike Apollo, who was like, hey, you're pretty. I'm a dude. Don't care. I'm a girl. Don't care. I'm sometimes not human. Don't care. Yeah.
Variety, and certainly not much in the depth department. Usually the most interesting thing about these women is either what hero they boinked or how they died. Nice to know modern media is really sticking to its roots on that one. But there's one crowning exception to the rule, and that is Medea. Granddaughter of Helios, princess of Iolcus, powerful sorceress, and somewhere in the gray area between girl boss and supervillain, Medea is anything but boring. She shows up off...
Wait. The gray area was actually part of canon? I'm used to her being very much the gray area. He's like, I'm the villain, but also I'm really nice, but I'm also really okay with the murder. So I didn't realize I was actually closer to mythology for her. Oh, wow.
Off and on through later Greek mythology, but her story is mostly codified in two texts. First, the Argonautica, a Greek epic poem from the 200s BCE, written by Apollonius Rhodes, and...
I have never heard of this. Argonautica. So it's probably the Argonauts, so Jason. So she would have been there. She would have been there as well, yeah, because Jason really screwed her over. I'm assuming she was in... No, Circe was with Odysseus, yeah.
And based off the well-known Hellenistic mythology of the time. And second, Medea, a tragic play written earlier by Euripides around 431 BCE. The first half of her life is an epic, the second half is a tragedy. I think we can safely assume this story is gonna have some twists in it. Now, this video is not about the Argonautica. It's about Medea, so we're gonna play a little fast and loose with this summary until our leading lady hits the stage. Got it? Good. Now, the events of the Argonautica take place a few decades before the Trojan War. This is the previous generation of heroes before the Iliad and the Odyssey. So the
Jason.
Argonautica is mostly about Jason, Prince of Thessaly, whose father Aeson was overthrown by his treacherous half-brother Peleus, who kills all of Aeson's descendants except for Jason, who's...
And they were never better off for it, even though he comes back a good leader, finally. Was it worth it?
Smuggled out to be raised by the centaur Chiron. Many years later, Jason returns to Thessaly to claim his rightful throne and runs into an old lady who needs help getting across a river. Jason carries her across, losing a sandal in the process, but gaining something very valuable in return, the favor of Hera, who it turns out was the old woman all along.
I thought she hated Jason. Also, the idea that Jason would do something nice for someone. Especially early on. He was, Did she promise him money or something? I hope you don't let me down. Oh, just everyone else.
From this point on, Hera regularly intervenes.
Gosh, dear, I've never seen you help out a hero like this. This one isn't your kid, dingus. Is it a grandkid? Because at this point, I think most people are probably related to Zeus.
With subtle acts of divine intervention to help her boy out. Jason arrives at the palace and demands Peleus gives him his rightful throne, but Peleus hits him with the classic "Hey kid, you like proving yourself" maneuver and sends Jason on a quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece, a textbook MacGuffin that could have been literally anything. Jason assembles a crack team of heroes called the...
Honestly, I wish there was an interpretation that came out. I was like, it was literally anything. There was no Golden Fleece, and you somehow managed to find it. It's like getting a pot of steam. It's an old trick, and anyone who's ever worked in food service, if you ever want to achieve it, you basically get the metal pot, you put it in a freezer, and before you go to give it to someone, you get a smaller pot, heat it up with hot water, take it out, cover it, and like put water back in, and put one inside the other, and then bring it over to the person so it's steaming. It freaks people out who think you can't actually get a pot of steam, because, bitch, I got a pot of steam. It's fun when you can make people's stupid jokes fall back on them.
The Argonauts, and they set sail on the Argo for Iolcus, where the Golden Fleece is stowed. The exact crew kinda depends on who you ask. Every version of the story has a different set of heroes on board. Sometimes Atalanta's around, sometimes Jason decreed the Argo a strictly no girls allowed zone.
Really? I mean, I've heard the Atalanta one, but again, because fate. Oh, Hercules in the background. I should know those two, but I'm pulling a blank.
Sometimes Theseus and Pirithous are there, sometimes they're already stuck in Hades for the crime of being absolute morons.
Yeah.
Heracles is usually on board, but...
Orpheus? Peleus, father of Achilles. Wait, really? The father of Achilles? Oh. Pollux and Castor.
But amusingly, he gets totally ditched early on, and they keep having near misses for the rest of usually on board. But amusingly, he gets totally ditched. I'm of being no girls allowed zone. Sometimes Theseus and Pirithous are there. Sometimes they're already stuck in Hades for the crime of being absolute morons. Heracles is usually on board, but amusingly, he gets totally ditched early on, and they keep...
Yeah, no, I did not mishear that. I was like, there can't be. No, apparently it's Hercules. Oh. Huh. Considering he has the favor of Hera, that's probably a good reason why.
Having near misses for the rest of the book without ever meeting back up again.
Wait, they actually
the cast
kept
list
him in
doesn't really matter. This is basically just an excuse to let an ensemble cast of heroes deal with a bunch of weird island shit for a while. So after a lot of filler, they eventually reach the kingdom of Iolcus.
And a cast of heroes dealing with weird island shit. Oh. Oh, God. This is One Piece. Jason is the ancient equivalent of Monkey D. Luffy. They're even slightly piratical. They steal a lot of shit. They do good sometimes. I don't know how to deal with this. This is... I need to just move on and think of something else. This is too weird.
Where the Golden Fleece is held. But unfortunately, Iolcus is ruled by a different, unrelated evil king named Aietes, who also meets Jason with a patented "Hey kid, you like proving yourself" gambit, and sets him a series of tasks to do before he gets the fleece.
First he'll
have to yoke a field full of deadly, fire-breathing oxen, and then use them to plow the field. Then he'll need to sow the field with dragon's teeth, and finally defeat an army of warriors. Jason...
I mean, if you got the oxen, you kind of got the second and third one down. Kill the warriors, take their teeth, and use the oxen to plow it.
Is not too optimistic about his prospects, so he and the Argonauts head off to discuss their options. But fortunately for Jason, Aietes has a sexy sorceress daughter named Medea, and with a little nudging from Hera, Eros hits her with the arrow of love. Suddenly head over heels for this handsome stranger, Medea...
Could it be you're craving my... McNuggies? And she looks absolutely just... What the hell with this?
Finds herself utterly tormented by this new conflict of interests. She desperately wants to help Jason out, but she hates the thought of betraying her father, and she's pretty scared of what he might do to her if he finds out she's been involved. Hera sends her dreams, where Jason came to her kingdom not for the Golden Fleece, but for her hand in marriage. But when she chooses him over her family and accomplishes his impossible tasks for him, her family is enraged. She wakes up, conflicted almost to the point of suicide, but while she's absolutely terrified of dying in disgrace, known to the world only as a foolish woman who gave up everything for a stranger, she eventually steals her resolve and decides to help Jason out, because love. She arranges for a covert meeting at the Temple of Hecate, where she...
So I'll pretend I'm irrationally smitten, so he'll let his guard down. Oh, princess, you're so bad. Well, that's one way to put it.
She serves as a priestess, tricking her handmaidens into thinking she's only pretending to like Jason so she can sabotage his success with evil magic. When Jason arrives, they awkwardly blush for a hot minute before Jason explains that he knows she...
Look, we both know I need you. God damn, that actually isn't a bad one.
He's his only hope of success, and if she helps him, he'll make sure she's famous throughout Greece for her heroism.
Well, you got half of that. She was famous. Hell, even before Fate, I did hear of her. I didn't know at the time why or how, but I had heard her name. Really should have figured that out before seeing Fate. I'd really appreciate... All right, you've convinced me.
Compares her to Ariadne helping Theseus through the Minotaur's maze, and smitten by his praise, Medea gives him a potion called the Charm of Prometheus that'll make him invulnerable. She also explains how to handle the other challenges. Anyway, the day arrives and Jason heads to the field, where, currently invulnerable thanks to Medea's potion, he easily yokes the fire-breathing bulls and sows the field with dragon's teeth. After a quick snack break, he returns to find an army of warriors have sprouted from the dragon's teeth, and recalling Medea's advice, he chucks a rock at them, and all the warriors get confused and pissed off, thinking one of them did it, and then they all kill each other. With the tasks completed, Jason's riding...
Oh my god, a face. Yeah, he suspects nothing. If only there was a sorceress around who could explain what was going on.
Pretty high, and King Aietes is baffled that Jason managed to pull it off. That night, Hera sends Medea nightmares to warn her that Aietes has figured out her involvement, and Medea wakes up and runs into the night, arriving at the Argo and telling them they gotta get out of there this minute and also please take her with them. Jason promises to do her one better and marry her.
How could I leave you? You saved my life. Wait, he actually does... Not bad, but...
The minute they get back to Greece. They obviously need to grab the golden fleece first, so Medea charms the dragon guarding it to sleep while Jason retrieves the fleece. Then they get the heck out of Dodge. The Colchians obviously give chase, with one of the fleets led by Medea's brother Absyrtus, and Jason and Medea come up with a cunning plan to deal with him. It's murder. The plan is murder. They lure him into a trap, and Jason dismembers him. Now Zeus gets pretty pissed about this whole family murder thing, so he curses the voyage to get all turned around and confused by the wind. So the journey home ends up taking a lot longer than expected, although...
I've never heard of a similar story around the same time that happened right before the Trojan War, where this would have happened. It's like cursing people to take long boat voyages is a thing. Although if it was Medea and Odysseus, one, he probably wouldn't have done nearly as many things to piss her off, and two, he probably would have had a way better trip. And now I want a Fake Grand Order crossover where just Medea and Odysseus... Actual Odysseus, not Atlantis Odysseus, fuck that, go on their own wacky adventures. It's stupid. No one's probably going to write it. Kind of want to find it. Damn.
Well, that's partially resolved when they end up blowing ashore on Kirke's island and she magically cleanses Medea and Jason of the guilt for the murder. Didn't know she could do that.
I mean, if you got enough magic, it's like, oh, hey, don't worry, I can take this part of your memory. It's probably easier than turning you into a pig.
Useful. A few more filler arcs happen.
Also, there's alcohol. I hear if you drink enough of it, you don't remember any guilt or anything ever. Again, you're kind of dead. It's technically accurate.
While they sail home, and Jason and Medea end up getting properly married on an island, so Medea won't be sent back to Iolcus by the king of the island, who's a pretty nice guy and won't pick up a properly married couple. Jason and Medea are married in a sacred cave on the cliffside and take a nice little wedding night nap on top of the golden fleece, which I will admit was not a detail I was expecting to read in this ancient Greek epic.
It sounds so much like a euphemism, except Golden Fleece was an actual thing they picked up. So they're literally going at it on top of the murder blanket, which was probably near there when they dismembered her brother. Who needs guilt? You know, played straight, this is absolutely horrifying, which probably plays into the tragedy half.
Yeah, Peleus, I don't know if you're going to want to touch that. So after a long and complicated voyage home, the lovers finally return to Thessaly. Now that's around where the Argonautica peters out, but the story's not over. The next bit is recounted in a short, now lost play by Euripides called the Pleiades.
Oh, it's lost, damn it! This is one of those things that always bugs me when we know it exists, but we know we've also lost it. Which means it's probably gone for good. I say probably because every now and again, historical finds get things. And there's also some manuscripts and scrolls that are in such horribly delicate shape. We might have tons of old books, but we can never in any way, shape, or form find out if we do because the technology just isn't there to read them safely without utterly destroying it. They're trying to do it with AI. As you can assume, no, that was stupid.
Obviously, Peleus doesn't want to give up the throne, proving himself be damned. He's also gone ahead and killed all of Jason's relatives just to, be proactive. But don't worry, Medea has a solution. It's murder. The solution is murder. She shows Peleus' daughters a cool spell she knows for rejuvenation by butchering an old ram and throwing the pieces into a boiling pot of herbs, at which point a young and healthy lamb jumps out. The daughters think that's really cool, so they go grab their dad and butcher him, and he's dead. He's just dead. Oops. So that's basically the first half of Medea's story. A young, demure, love-struck woman.
I mean, admittedly, if they're dumb enough to believe that, that's on them.
and falls head over heels for a handsome, heroic stranger and gives up everything to save him from an impossible situation, and then he rescues her from her vengeful family and brings her to a better land to marry him and live happily ever after. That is a beautiful, classic, textbook love story, plus or minus a couple murders.
Actually, considering how many love stories have murders, including the Disney ones, it's kind of par for course. Actually, there's a lot of murders in the Disney ones. The more you look, it gets like, yeah, they have a lot body count in those. It's kind of creepy when you think about it. And here comes the part I only know because of fate, which is just referring to the constant trope I always say in anything historical, mythological, or in any way, shape, or form covered by fate. Oh shit, it was actually right. Because it sounds like, oh shit, it was actually right.
So why is the play Medea a tragedy? Buckle up, it's actually kind of fascinating. So to start us off, Jason has a bit of a problem. See, what with the whole gruesome death of Peleus and all, Jason is now an accessory to a crime, and he can't really claim the throne of Thessaly, little known downside to solving all your problems with murder. So he and Medea decide to head to Corinth instead. A few years evidently pass and they make a home there, but Jason ends up courting Glauce, princess of Corinth and daughter of King Creon, in the hopes that marrying her will make him royalty and ensure the future of his line, as well as the safety of Medea and their 2 children, because by the way, they have 2 children now. Now this is, what's the word?
Holy shit. I'm not sure if that even is picked up on the microphone, but that was a lot of thunder. Like, Or is that a bunch of fireworks? I have literally no idea, and I'm terrified because they're still going. So I'm expecting the lights to go out here, so, yeah.
Adultery, that's right. Jason is married to Medea, both in the eyes of the law and the gods, and now he's trying to marry this Corinthian princess for the perks. Medea is understandably furious and has been completely inconsolable with grief and rage for long enough that King Creon is starting to get worried she might end up doing something drastic, like...
I have no idea what this could possibly be. Is it potentially moving into a different location? That would make sense.
Just spitballing here, murder. So he decides he should exile...
Oh god, the face! I'm sorry, but this kingdom is a strictly drama-free zone. You're going to have to leave. How did that protecting your kids go, Jason?
Her and her children, so she can't do any murdering. She successfully pleads with him to give her...
Oh, very well. How much damage could you do in just one day? She didn't even need a full day to kill some other kings, so yeah.
One more day to get her affairs in order before he exiles her, and he agrees, which is unwise because now he's given her 24 hours to get all that murdering out of her system.
Shit.
But Medea isn't stupid. We've already seen how clever she is and how carefully she arranges her exit strategy.
Again, this is one of the reasons Medea is a fascinating character, and I would love to see if there was an alternate, considering how many times we get alternate takes, I'm wondering if we just haven't discovered an alternate take on Medea that's completely different and has something else happen.
We also already know from the Argonautica that her worst fear is being abandoned and suffering the humiliation of sacrificing everything for a stranger who doesn't even care about her. She definitely wants revenge, but she knows she can't just start willy-nilly murdering people. Then she'll still be abandoned and also wanted for murder. While she's pondering this conundrum,
Nice going, dude. You totally ruined my flawless plan. Oh, God, Jason, why are you so stupid?
Jason shows up to tell her that if she'd just been cool about him ditching her for this new woman, she wouldn't be getting exiled right now. Medea enumerates the many ways she's saved his ass in the past and accuses him of denying his oaths to the gods, which sets up a pretty interesting theme in this story of Medea's actions, no matter how murdery, having the tacit approval of the gods. More on that.
I mean, the gods approving of murder is a pretty standard thing. If anything, it got worse considering the Trojan War happened after this in their own timeline. So, yeah.
Later. Anyway, Medea points out that...
Oh, this also would have been the pre-Hellenistic one, the Mycenaean Greece too. So the gods would have been very different, although the story is probably written in more of the Hellenistic period, so... Even if it's set before, was it actually an old enough story to come from Mycenaean Greece? That would be even more fascinating if there's an even older tale somewhere. Things that I wish I knew.
That exile is almost a death sentence because she's made enemies everywhere by constantly helping out Jason, who has a habit of pissing people off and then requiring magical assistance. And
speaking of, he's pissing off someone else. Who'd have thought?
Jason counters that really she got more than she gave in that bargain because, sure, she sacrificed her family and homeland to do his impossible tasks for him and saved his life over and over again. But hey, now she gets to live in Greece, not that icky barbarian place she came from. And also, she's famous now because of all that cool stuff she did for him that he got to take the credit for. Besides...
Wait, she got to take the credit for? Or he did?
Place she came from. And also, she's famous now because of all that cool stuff she did for him that he got to take the credit.
Oh, he got to take the credit for. I misheard her putting an S in there. That's just on me.
For. Besides, Medea is just some barbarian woman with phenomenal cosmic powers. Jason can't pass up a real princess. His genius plan was to keep Medea as his mistress when he marries the princess so he could get them some sweet royal protection, and then eventually...
If this was French and a couple thousand years later, that literally would be how it works. And the mistress would be the lover, and the royal marriage would be the, oh God, we're just doing this because we literally have to. This is not that time period, and I don't actually know how this would play out in their local time understandings. Considering how it looks, though, I'm assuming bad. It looks like it would go bad.
Eventually, Medea's lame, not royal kids will have some properly royal half-siblings. Isn't that lovely? Unfortunately, Medea getting herself exiled has spoiled his brilliant plan somewhat, but don't worry, he's totally willing to give her some money to make that whole wandering the wasteland with 2 young children thing easier. Oh man, I want to see her kill him so bad. So
yeah. Unfortunately, I know how this goes. Not what happens. What could have you so down in the dumps?
Jason leaves, and when Medea heads outside to think, she runs into Aegeus, king of Athens, who greets her like an old friend.
Wait, there's just random other kings here? I guess king meeting king is a thing, but seriously? Athens even? I thought Athens wasn't around during Mycenaean. It's probably very different during Mycenaean times then. Unless this is just a Hellenistic story that's set in Mycenaean time.
Apparently he's in town because he wanted to ask the oracle why his wiener doesn't work, but when he sees Medea looking so down, he asks what's wrong, and she fills him in on Jason being the absolute worst. He's totally sympathetic and offers her sanctuary in Athens, though he...
And it would be a very different story if she just took him up on it with Jason's money and left. It's like, oh, you get this small town, I get Athens, bitch. I know it's cold comfort, but Athens will always welcome you.
He does say he can't actually get her there, she'll have to make her own way over. Medea, cautious as ever, tells him
even if I made powerful enemies. Of course, cool. Be back later.
She's made quite a lot of enemies, and she needs to know he'll be willing to protect her from, I don't know, retribution or something? He promises, and with her exit strategy firmly in place, Medea gets down to the brass tacks of plotting a murder. So Medea takes a beautiful golden gown and coronet, 2 gifts from Helios, and applies a poison to them so potent that it won't just kill whoever wears them, it'll also kill anyone that person touches. She also ponders killing her kids, reasoning that'll hurt Jason pretty bad, although the chorus points out it'll also hurt her.
The chorus? It's not worth it, girl. He cares less than you. Yeah, I'm not sure he knows their names. That is entirely possible. Also, but chorus? Or is that the chorus, she said? I'm just going to put...
Also ponders killing her kids, reasoning that'll hurt Jason pretty bad, although the chorus points...
The chorus. Okay, it's the chorus. So this is where, because it was a play, it was literally the chorus telling her. Which is weird, because I thought her story was she did actually kill her kids. And then fail to kill Jason.
It'll also hurt her a lot more, since Jason is kind of a terrible dad who doesn't really like them that much. But Medea decides it's worth it. I mean, it wouldn't be the first family she's murdered. Anyway, she calls Jason back in and pretends to be...
I've been so unreasonable. Wow, Red, you're going to town on the eyes on this one. I know. Oh, God, he's... The moment you realize FGO is inaccurate with Jason because they make him too likable. And then you remember what Jason is like up until Atlantis. And I would still say that. Despite Atlantis, even. I know the story. He gets redeemed in that one. I'm talking about pre-Atlantis Jason is still too nice in FGO for this guy.
Be all remorseful about their argument, and Jason totally buys it because he knows women tend to get emotional when their husbands leave them for other women. Medea tells him she hates the thought of their poor children sharing her exile, and couldn't he possibly convince Creon to let them stay? Jason's not sure about Creon, but he thinks he can convince Glauce to do it, what with her being a woman and thus dumb and emotional and stuff. Medea gives the gown and coronet to her kids, and
and they probably end up touching and die. Okay. Be very persuasive, okay? And don't touch it is probably a good option.
And tells them to be very convincing and persuade Glauce to let them stay by giving her these wedding gifts. She sends them off, and evidently they're very persuasive because they come back without the presents. Medea suffers from a brief internal conflict over murdering them, and then a messenger arrives in a panic telling her to get the hell...
The king and princess are dead! You're blaming you! Oh, they're blaming you and your kids! Time to run.
Out of Dodge because everyone's dead, and they're definitely going to blame her. He's probably not expecting Medea to respond, "Ooh, spill the tea! Did she suffer? Tell me she suffered." So apparently when the kids showed up, everyone was excited because it meant Medea was maybe getting over her grudge. Everyone except for Glauce, who refused to even look at them until they showed her the shiny presents. She immediately put them on, stumbled
and I'm assuming they touched the dead body too, huh?
around for a bit, and then caught fire.
What the fuck?
It's a hell of a poison. So she died.
Okay. Wow. That was not what I thought the poison would do. I love me some spontaneous combustion poison. It's everywhere. It's all the rage. It's like the ice, the frozen one, the suddenly liking rap music, but only the kind that is done with a country twang, which apparently is a real thing and I've heard of. And it's actually not bad somehow. I don't get it, but it's actually not bad. But yeah, it's right up there with those.
dies and Creon cradles her body, at which point he also dies.
Yeah.
Whoopsies. The messenger books it, and Medea decides this at least makes the whole child murder thing easier, since killing the entire royal family of Corinth is gonna get them killed anyway. She heads discreetly off stage, and the kids
Oh no, murder is happening. How unfortuitous.
yell about how they are very definitely getting murdered right now, which is when Jason shows up, loudly talking about how he sure hopes nobody kills the kids to retaliate against him. Ooh. Poor timing.
Tough
So
one.
Medea rises out of the house and into the air in Helios' flying chariot, using a bit of
have that?
stagecraft usually reserved for the gods, by the way, and she taunts Jason that he'll never
It's over, Jason. Oh my god, she's quoting Obi-Wan. Again, I would love to see a version where she doesn't kill the kids, because honestly, they kind of did establish he doesn't give a damn. Except until right now, where it's like, oh no, have you killed the kids, the people I definitely care about? Is one of them named Achilles? I don't know.
never reach her up here, and she's successfully taken everything from him. Jason yells about how he probably should have taken Medea's willingness to betray her family for him as
Yeah, but also you kept her with you and you knew she was willing to betray people if they fucked her. I can't believe you betray your own family for reasons that don't benefit me. Oh, boo-hoo.
a red flag. He also says that the souls of their children will avenge him on her, but Medea
The gods will avenge me. Oh, yes, the gods who love oathbreakers and adulterers. Remind me, which gods are those again? Technically Zeus. Zeus is pretty good with the adulterer part. He's really a big fan of it. In fact, I almost think that's really what he should be known for.
says the gods know who really messed up in this situation, and she's gonna go bury their kids in Hera's sacred lands before purifying herself of the crime, presumably with Kirke's help again, and then heading to Athens for a nice long nap. And meanwhile, she prophesizes that Jason's gonna die a miserable death, crushed
Oh, if only. Zeus punishes oathbreakers, and Hera is the goddess of marriage. You might be the only thing they ever agree on, but
under the ruins of his only heroic achievement. Jason swears that an avenging fury will destroy her, and Medea tells him good luck finding one that'll listen to a liar and an oathbreaker, and flies away. Jason leaves, asking the gods to avenge him, and the play closes out with the chorus singing that the gods don't always give us what we want. Honestly, hilarious. Sure enough, Medea...
Wait, what exactly did they say? You can't always get what you want. You get what you want. The gods don't always give us what we want. Oh, that's accurate. Or worse when they do.
singing that the gods don't always give us what we want. Honestly, hilarious. Sure
Yeah.
enough, Medea remains conspicuously unsmote and makes sporadic appearances in later mythology,
Oh,
heading
really?
to Athens and marrying Aegeus fairly happily until his son Theseus shows up and she tries to kill him a little bit and runs off to a nebulous faraway land. Medea quietly vanishes into the mythos, never even canonically dying. Her story seems to vindicate that despite all the familicide and the poisoning and stuff, she really did retain the favor of the gods right up to...
So she never actually had a written death? Oh, that's actually surprising considering most people had written deaths. Hercules had a written death. Oh. So theoretically, if someone said, hey, we just found this manuscript of new Medea things, it wouldn't even be a contradictory piece at this point. That's kind of fascinating. I guess she was just really well loved as the person who managed to do the right thing and was super tricksy. Because that was literally the Greek hero aesthetic of the best people were tricksters.
the end, framing her as a bizarrely morally nuanced figure. And in contrast, Jason, well, things really don't go so hot for Jason. As you may recall, his whole hero's journey really got started when he won the favor of Hera through that secret test of character thing.
Yep.
She was essentially his patron god, and basically
Okay, maybe it's just me, but I absolutely hate the filter she has on there right now. It's all the little flashing. It's literally giving me a headache. Oh, God.
the only reason
not
he
having
has
a
to
stroke
live
here at
through
all.
himself
Give me a minute,
derails,
though.
as well as the only reason Medea falls in love with him. Well, Hera was the goddess of marriage
Yeah.
and family, and then Jason betrayed his wife. Medea wasn't just sassing when she called him an oathbreaker, he was quite literally breaking a divine oath by abandoning her and their children, without
Minus the part where she then killed the kids. That's still kind of...
the favor of Hera. Jason dies alone and unhappy when the rotting prow of the Argo breaks off and crushes him in his
That's
sleep,
how he died?
a crumbling monument
Damn.
to his only heroic achievement. Jason and Medea are a classic tragedy that hits surprisingly hard. They were in love, they were heroes, they did incredible things, and then when the situation changed, their very human flaws tore them apart.
I don't want to... I wouldn't say it's her very human flaws. It's more his very, very stupid flaws tore them apart. And by tore them apart, I mean, probably should have killed him sooner and just GTFO'd. Just throwing it out there.
Two characters who were heroes in one context become nightmares in another. Reading the Argonautica is a genuinely very weird experience, seeing the beginning of their relationship,
know how
knowing
it
how
goes.
terribly it's going to end.
And because the play about how it's going to end came out sooner. God, I would have loved if she'd done a little more of a deep dive on if there was anything else, or were there any hints that anything else was out there. Because she mentioned one play that they know existed but was lost. How many other bits of lost knowledge are they having hints at? I would love to know more about that. Just like, what is lost? What do we know is there but we haven't been able to find? And what do we suspect is there because there are hints to it that are referenced but not actually found?
You can kind of tell it was written with that in mind. There are a few little tidbits of Medea's character that seem like they're deliberately written there to make the impact of the original tragedy hit harder. Jason could have never succeeded in his quest without Medea, but because of all the murderiness of Medea's methods, he ended up failing to win the throne he'd been after in the first place, driving him to further extremes to try and claim the royalty he deserved. Jason loved Medea, but not more than he wanted the future he'd been after, and in casting her aside, he made a terrible enemy. And Medea was always brilliantly clever, and she loved Jason very fiercely. She had no other choice thanks to Hera, and she loved their children in a way Jason didn't. Throughout the play, he only ever calls them her children until they're dead, and then suddenly they're his children and he feels really bad about it. In a better time, in a better situation, they probably could have been happy together for the rest of
I wouldn't go that far. He seems like the kind of guy who would never really be content. She would be happy. He would be a dumbass. In a better time, in a better place, he would have tripped and she would have got a new husband when he broke his neck.
Of their lives, if only Jason weren't such an absolute dingus.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll just ditch my incredibly cunning and powerful sorceress wife for this random princess. I'm sure she'll be cool with it. What could possibly go wrong?
So out of all of that, a lot of it I did know because Grand Order was correct about so much of this. But they had a few things wrong. One, Fate portrays Jason as he did horrible things, and Medea did horrible things to him. But afterwards, he did eventually become a king and was a very good king, but also fucked because of the curse and literally losing most joy while he was finally a good king. Where it looks like in mythology, he just got fucked because he's an idiot. Which admittedly is actually a little more satisfying that way. Medea not dying though, that is absolutely fascinating to me because that leaves so much room to work with if someone wanted to do anything else or if anything is found later because it would very much fit into that. What was the breakdown? How were these pieces found? What do we know? I want that information. If anyone knows where there maybe is a deep dive or some kind of scholarly paper, I would even check that out at this point. Let me know because I want to know more about this character than even Red went into. And she did a lot of the deep dive, but mostly on the two main sources and just did a little hint to show that, yeah, there was another play. It's lost, but we kind of know what was in there. Proving that if you have lost one thing, you've probably lost a second. And maybe a couple thousand years worth of them on top of that. Also, if anyone knows if this was a Hellenistic play set during the Mycenaean Greece era or a Mycenaean Greece play that happened to transfer over somehow and with distortion to the Hellenistic period, I would love to know that as well, just because there's such different cultures, but they have so much from one depending on the other. This is cool. The historic aspect brought into the mythology is literally one of my favorite things. And when Red engages in that, it's amazing. Again, I've been told that's literally what the detailed diatribes for her and Blue do together. I need to get to them. I haven't. I need to. That's on me. Either way, you guys know. I can't speak today. Video links below. Hit them up. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go and be absolutely terrified because that Typhon video reminded me that, yeah, the DM is going to probably use this character to kill us because I'm pretty sure Typhon is in D&D. We're screwed.